Hello everyone, welcome to Everything Arsenal. A lot to discuss once again today. We have news on Madueke, but even before getting into the news, I have a question for you guys. If I know most people don't agree with signing Madueke, including myself, but listen to this. If we sign Madueke, and then we also sign Eze and sign Gyökeres and those other guys up front, does that make you feel like, okay, that's fine, as long as we've signed Eze and Gyökeres and if Madueke is part of that, no problem. As long as we've signed Gyökeres as a striker and you've signed Eze and maybe even Rodrygo, is that how it's going to make you feel? Or even if we sign those players, are you still going to feel like, no, I do not care. I just didn't want Madueke at Arsenal at all. I don't rate him at all. Even if we sign these other players, I just didn't want Madueke at all. How do you feel about that situation? But it's looking very likely that Madueke is going to be an Arsenal player unless there's a disagreement in terms of the money, because Madueke has agreed to join Arsenal and Arsenal, concluded the personal terms with him. And also there's news on Nwaneri that will be very interesting as well. But let's start with the one on Madueke. So David Dunstan says that Noni Madueke agrees personal terms with Arsenal as they consider approaching Chelsea or England international. Arsenal have 23-year-old green light plus strong relations with Chelsea, but no club-to-club talks yet. Firm option to bolster on both wings. I mean, I just watched Madueke today morning when he played against Palmeiras. I don't like him as a left wing at all. And, I don't see him as an improvement on our left wing. Now, on the right side, he's been okay for Chelsea, but definitely disappointing most of the times. As I said on the live show yesterday, I'm actually surprised that Madueke would want to join Arsenal because there's a World Cup next year, and he competes for that position with players like Saka. And at Arsenal, Saka is going to start, and if Madueke is at Arsenal, he's going to be the backup for Saka. So Saka stays ahead of V at that point in terms of England duties and the international team. And there's other players like Palmer and Bowen who will be shining in their team. So I was actually very, very surprised that he would want to join us, and he's agreed the personal terms very quickly. So let's get through what David Dunstan has had to say. Arsenal have agreed personal terms with Noni Madueke as they consider making an approach to Chelsea for the winger. Madueke, 23, has given the green light to Arsenal. Arsenal have good relations with Chelsea. We've already signed Kepa this transfer. It's crazy, man. We're going for the second Chelsea player, man. This time you're not even signing one. This time you're setting new records. You're going for two. The North London club triggered 5 million release clause for Kepa. Madueke is of interest to Arsenal as they weigh up option to provide depth on the right wing. While the England international is also capable of operating on the opposite flank, the Athletic reported on July 1st that Madueke was one of the options being considered by Arsenal as they searched for a versatile attacking player to add to Mikel Arteta's squad this summer. With Crystal Palace's Eberechi Eze and Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers also under consideration. More Eze. Madueke has made 45 appearances for Chelsea this season, including 4 at the Club World Cup in the United States. He scored 11 goals and added 5 assists despite missing time with a hamstring injury, and Enzo Maresca twice opting to leave him out of the matchday squad. Madueke was dropped for the 3-0 win of Aston Villa in December over his apparent performances in training. He was also muted from the defeat by Fulham later that month in what Maresca called a technical decision. Madueke joined Chelsea from PSV in January 2023. Remember, before that, he had just played against Arsenal in the Europa League for PSV. And has gone on to appear in 91 matches for the club. His contract runs until 2030. So he previously represented Tottenham Hotspur and Crystal Palace at youth level. So he's been in London, various London clubs. And then obviously they go on to say that Chelsea have brought players like Delap and Pedro, so they could be looking to sell Madueke. I don't think Madueke will be starting for Chelsea next season because they have players like Neto, but he also won't be starting for Arsenal. But David Dunstan, that's the breaking news. We have agreed personal terms with him. He wants to join Arsenal. He wants to make the move, but Arsenal and Chelsea have not yet discussed anything as of yet. Now, this is what Fabrizio's had to say about this. More on Noni Madueke and Arsenal story reported earlier today. The agreement on personal terms is ready and done, with parties advancing on details this morning. Madueke said yes to Mikel Arteta's project. Club-to-club talks will start in the upcoming days. So there hasn't been any club-to-club talks. Again, I'm hoping that, if you look at the transfer window, if Madueke is done before the others, if you look at it just like that and you look at it like, Madueke backup, because I wanted quality and also quantity in terms of the squad. I wanted us to get like 3-4 players who are going to come and start. Let's say three, and then we needed us to have enough bench players next season, from the backup goalkeeper, backup defenders, backup midfielders, backup for Saka, backup for Odegaard, all that. Now, if we just look at the transfer window so far, if we sign Madueke today, you look at Kepa, Madueke, Nogard, and Zubimendi, people will rate that probably like a 2 out of 10 transfer window so far. And that would be a bit concerning heading into the middle of July. But maybe if you add Gyökeres, Eze, and Rodrygo to that, it becomes a 10 out of 10, because you look at quality and you also look at quantity in addition. But what kind of money are we going to spend on Madueke as well? Because there's been talks on 40 million. That's a lot of money, man. A lot of people are still not convinced about that 65 million that we paid for Havertz, and then giving Chelsea more money for him. There's other wingers I would personally have gone for, players like Bakayoko from PSV. But Plettenberg has this to say as well. Understand personal terms between Arsenal and Noni Madueke are almost agreed. The 23-year-old winger has given green light to join Arsenal. An offer was already submitted to Madueke, as exclusively revealed 4 days ago. No agreement yet between Chelsea and Arsenal, but the deal is still on. So it might still not happen if Arsenal and Chelsea don't agree on anything. I'm sure many people will be praying it doesn't happen. But I've still seen some comments saying, hey, Madueke is a good player, bring him as a backup for Saka and all that. So let's see how it goes. But would you be, if you're happy with Madueke coming to Arsenal, would you be happy if I told you Madueke to Arsenal, Nwaneri to Chelsea? Because that now becomes a very sensitive matter. When you get to Nwaneri going to Chelsea and Madueke coming to Arsenal, it becomes very, very sensitive. Now, this is what Fabrizio's had to say. Chelsea have been showing interest in Ethan Nwaneri's situation only in case new deal won't be sealed with Arsenal. Nwaneri and Arsenal in talks of a new deal while player wants game time guaranteed. Separate deal from Madueke, who agreed personal terms with Arsenal. So again, as I said at the beginning of the transfer window, I believe Lewis Kelly will sign a new contract, Gabriel will sign a new contract, Saka will sign a new contract, Nwaneri will sign a new contract, Saliba will eventually sign a new contract, but not maybe as quickly as the others. So far, Gabriel and Lewis Kelly, they've signed new contracts. I'm expecting, Saka and Saliba, I think their contract expires in 2 years' time, so still have some time there. But there's a few players who contracts were expiring this year, and some others next year as well. Players like Zinchenko, but Nwaneri, I do still believe he's going to sign a new contract. I still believe he has a role to play at Arsenal. There's been talks on that as well of where Arsenal want to play him in the team. But yeah, you letting go of a talent like Nwaneri to Chelsea, the Hutchinson one was not good. It didn't work out for them. They let him go to Ipswich. But Nwaneri has been at this level. He's one of the reasons why we actually enjoyed a little bit of last season, him and Lewis Kelly. It was because of them. And he's the kind of player who's been scoring goals against in big games, Champions League, last 16 games against Man City in the Premier League. This is a big game player who has a lot of potential, so you cannot just give him to Chelsea. This as well. Arsenal are in active and positive talks. So this is what Fabrizio reported yesterday, that Arsenal are in active, positive talks of a new deal for Ethan Nwaneri, but there are discussions surrounding his game time and the club's progression plan for the youngster. So I didn't think Nwaneri got enough game time last season, and that is for sure. There's a few times a lot of times actually, where he was on the bench and I felt like, why can't we just bring him for even 5 minutes? He was just sitting on the bench throughout and all that. Now, Nwaneri was very good majority of the games that he played, but there was a couple of games here and there that you could tell, like, yeah, he still has a bit of growing to do, whether it's in terms of physicality and all that, because in terms of physicality, Lewis Kelly is ahead of him. But most of the games that Nwaneri played, he was very promising. But there's a couple that you watched and he was subbed off early, maybe because he was not keeping the ball well or whatever, stuff like that. But I don't think that means you should sell him or even loan him out. No, because if you've seen 75% that is good and 25% that you still need to work on. And these guys are like 18, 19, man. There's and Noni is 18 right now, 17 maybe. These players still have a lot to work on. You cannot just get rid of them. They still have a lot of growing to do. Miles Lewis Kelly, Ethan Nwaneri, all of them have a lot of growing to do. So I don't think if you keep Nwaneri to next season, he definitely is a better player than what he was 2 seasons ago, because he gets to play more with the first team. And I also don't think we've let him, we've not given him that many chances to play with the first team. It's either whether someone is rested and then he comes on, or whether we are rotating almost the entire team. Nwaneri comes on. I'd like to see him, sometimes playing as a 10 next to Saka and Gyökeres. I'd like to see him playing as 8, next to Rice and Odegaard. I'd like to see him, combining all of these players in the team. Personally, for me, I think it would be absolutely crazy to even consider selling Nwaneri. And then if we start thinking about it as well, and then we start talking about 20 million to Chelsea, that would be disastrous. So definitely not. Now, where are Arsenal seeing him as where does he fit in for Arsenal? David Austin says that Arsenal view Ethan Nwaneri as more of a midfielder operating as an 8 or 10 as opposed to a winger. Now, if you say that, then obviously separate from Madueke, then Madueke would be a backup for Saka, but would Nwaneri be a backup for Odegaard? Because we are assuming Eze will be there, and Rice has been playing as the number 8. There's already Zubimendi and Nogard as the 6. Listen, as I said from the beginning of the transfer window, I want us to have as many options as possible. I'm not complaining about having Rice, Nogard, and Zubimendi as our 6s, all 3 of them, and having Eze, Odegaard, and Nwaneri all as options there. I'm not complaining about that at all. I want us to have as many players as possible in the team, and if most of them are quality, that really, really helps us, because last season we were really lacking in terms of numbers, because there's a few games here and there where we were 2-0 up, 3-0 up, like in the Carabao Cup, and we didn't have anyone to give an opportunity on the bench because we had like first team players on the bench. We don't want that. Maybe in the Carabao Cup you can give some of the youngsters opportunities that I don't have to play in the Premier League or start Premier League games. But the Nwaneri to Chelsea one, I don't think there's any Arsenal fan who would like to hear that at all. And I've seen Chelsea fans saying, "Oh, we'd actually take him." So Chelsea fans would be happy with that. And an Arsenal fan making Chelsea happy, we do not want that to be happening. Now, what's the latest on Eberechi Eze? David Onston says Arsenal are exploring a deal for Eberechi Eze. As things stand, they've held some conversations, not club to club so far. It's more with the player side of things. It would be as a potential attacking option. It's not like they would be looking at him and not a left winger or not a striker. It's an additional thing. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's advanced. Arsenal, I think, wouldn't want to be going as high as the release clause if they proceed with this. I'm sure Crystal Palace would like to see the release clause met if they're going to lose the player or their player. As this release clause is timed, so it has to be hit within a certain period. Otherwise, it's not active, and you have to negotiate like normal. We are not at that point yet. It's something that may develop, but it is it's in a relatively embryonic stage right now. So that's according to David Dunstan on The Athletic. He says that, there's a chance that we will sign Eze. We've not had club-to-club meetings yet. I think Fabrizio reported it as well, and a couple of other journalists saying that we've already held meetings with Eze in his camp. The player wants to join Arsenal. The agents are happy with him joining Arsenal. We've already agreed on personal terms. The players have agreed to join Arsenal, but we still have to agree with Crystal Palace, so just go and activate the release clause right away. But if Arsenal want to pay it in installments, there has to be the negotiations, because we've been told that that deal might be 20 million, 20 million, 20 million, then 8 million add-ons later. As David Johnson also said, his release clause is timed, so if you don't get it done as quickly as possible, that might change, and that price might rise to 90 million. Crystal Palace would like to see the release clause met. So Crystal Palace are not really, 100% keen on keeping him. I'm sure if you had to ask them, they would like to keep him, but as of now, they're not really standing in the way that much. So let's see. Again, if you get Madueke and you still get Eze, Rodrygo, and you get Gyökeres, maybe a few fans or many fans will be like, okay, whatever, as long as we send other players, Madueke is not a starter, whatever, that is fine. But that is the latest on Eze. That is the player that I really, really want, man. If you can get Eze and Gyökeres, that would be absolutely exciting. Now, what about Rodrygo? According to Hand of Arsenal, intermediaries with direct mandate from Saudi clubs have been told in no certain terms that Rodrygo's preference is to move to the Premier League, with Arsenal his absolute priority in case a deal can be struck with Real Madrid. So that is also great to hear. Rodrygo is giving Arsenal priority. He doesn't want to move to Saudi Arabia, because I've always thought, if a team from Saudi Arabia comes in and tells him you're going to give you 500,000 per week, and Arsenal can only offer him 250, or a team from even a Bayern Munich says, hey, we have 300,000 for you, or Man City comes in last minute and says, hey, we just lost to Al Hilal, we need more players, we're going to give you 350,000 per week, come and play with Haaland and all these guys are going to be starting every single game, we've just sold Grealish. They can tell him all that. If he wants to join the Premier League, he might still say, hey, I want to go to a Liverpool, Man City, but he's given absolute priority to Arsenal. That is also great to hear. Listen, I would absolutely love if you signed all these players, but I'm thinking, is it possible to sign all of these players? Madueke, Eze, Rodrygo, Gyökeres, is it really possible? Now, for Rodrygo, I'm starting to think, if you sign Madueke, Eze, and Gyökeres, I'm starting to really think like if the only way you're getting Rodrygo is if you sell Martinelli, because that news has also been coming out a lot, that Martinelli is going to go and then Rodrygo comes in. Keeping all of them, again, I want as many players as possible, but what happens in terms of the money and the wages and how much we have, the fees and all that, and the playing time. Will every single player be happy? Will Martinelli be happy with sitting on the bench all those games? Because if you have Eze as an option, and you also have Rodrygo as an option, and you also have Trossard as an option, even Madueke as an option, where does Martinelli fit in if all of those players are ahead of him? So that is also something to look at. So that's the latest on Rodrygo from Hand of Arsenal. I think there's also another update on Rodrygo from John Cross of the Mirror. Arsenal will have to pay in excess of £70 million to sign Rodrygo from Real Madrid, and possible competition from Bayern Munich and PSG could further increase the price. So 70 million is what you're going to need to pay for a player like Rodrygo if you're going to get him. It's not going to be cheap. All these players we're being linked to, it's not going to be cheap. You're going to have to pay 60 plus million for Gyökeres, 60 plus million for Eze, 70 plus million for Rodrygo. We haven't even, Zubimendi already 55 million. Some of them are installments, but we haven't even yet spoken about the wages and all that. Some of these players will need to go to 200,000 plus, 250,000 plus. A few of them will be low, like Kepa and players like Nogard, but we'll need to pay a lot of money for this kind of players. So let's see what happens. Nwaneri to Chelsea, please don't let that happen. Madueke for 45 million, my goodness, that is a lot of money, man. Let me know. The question I asked you guys at the beginning: if we sign all these others, are you okay with signing Madueke? Because I know just signing Madueke and not signing Eze and Rodrygo, that would not be great. And then if you top that with letting Nwaneri go to Chelsea, there could be like a riot at the Emirates Stadium and all over the world with Arsenal fans. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next one.